Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This is Rabbi Stephen. So, as most of you know, I will not be involved in service in Friday night services this week, and next week we have a family service, and the following week is Purim, and we'll be having some things going on there. The upshot is that I won't be doing a sermon for about almost a month, and there are some things going on that I wanted to address as a sermon, so I'm going to put this online. I'm going to put it on my website, and it's a little, I know too that when I give sermons, people want to be inspired. They want things from the Torah. This is a little bit more involved in current events and politics, so I felt that this was the best forum. And again, being a rabbi, being very concerned with what's going on in the world, I did want to address what's going on. And as a Jewish rabbi, I feel compelled to address a political issue that I, and probably most of you, if not all of you, find very disturbing. So this past election, as we all know, the Democratic Party made history with the addition of 3 new congresswomen. 2 of them are Muslim, and they are, in fact, the first Muslim and first Muslim woman elected to the House of Representatives, along with a 3rd woman who is the youngest person ever to serve. All 3 are considered rising stars in the Democratic Party, and they represent what many people feel is a new progressive socialist point of view. There are, unfortunately, some problems. All 3 of these women, one in particular, have been very vocal about how they feel that Israel is oppressing the Palestinians, which are an indigenous Arabs that also inhabit that area of the Middle East. They will profess that they are not specifically anti-Semitic, but they are merely criticizing what they feel is the unfair treatment of a people by a repressive government. And that's it. By now, however, almost everyone who knows Ilhan Omar and what she has said about Israel and Jews. She has been very prolific on Twitter, talking about how American Jews have this due loyalty to Israel to the point of preferring their policies over their own country's best interests. She has accused politicians of caving into AIPAC, the American Israel Political Action Committee, an organization that stands up for Israel. When asked by a Twitter follower why she believes they influence the politicians, her response was, "It's all about the Benjamins, baby," a reference to politicians being bribed by $100 bills. This is on the heels of other similar past posts that seem to indicate a very anti-Semitic point of view. While many might consider that she was confronting just another lobby group with their looking to unduly influence politicians, many of the references with which she criticized AIPAC were very familiar anti-Semitic tropes. These were typical anti-Semitic comments that Jews control the world, hold most of the money, and seek to control governments for their own nefarious purposes. Now, the Democratic Party responded, and they sought to contain the damage. The Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, made a statement criticizing her comments and affirming that she does not represent the views of the Democratic Party at large, which does indeed support Israel. However, Ms. Pelosi also appointed Ms. Omar to one of the most important committees in the House. As Ms. Omar's previous comments were discovered, she started pushing back and defended and justified her position that Israel is oppressing the Palestinian people. Now, this prompted some congressional representatives to present a resolution condemning anti-Semitism as a whole, with a veiled reference to Ms. Omar's comments without actually naming her. Supporters of Ms. Omar and her political point of view and detractors of Israel pushed back furiously. They drove the issue to the point where the resolution ultimately became a general condemnation of all forms of bigotry, including Islamophobia, bigotry against the LGBTQ community, and others. At this point, many people are supporting her and her views, denying that she is anti-Semitic. This has even got to the point where some Jews have spoken out in her support. So, let's take a look at reality. All someone has to do is read the news, any news, and see that Israel only attacks to defend its sovereign nation, something that is guaranteed by the UN Charter. Recently, people from Gaza have been staging protests at the Israel border. We all know this has been going on for weeks. Now, these so-called protests involve sending over balloons with incendiary devices, which have ruined the farmland of innocent Israel civilians. These people have also thrown rocks at Israeli soldiers that are on the Israel side of the border, who are doing nothing more than standing guard. Another issue that is not mentioned is that Hamas, the terrorist organization, and this is labeled as such by the U.S. and many other countries, including the UN, they launched 400 missiles at Israel during a time when they were involved in peace talks. No one discusses also how Palestinians have broken into Israel and some civilians' homes and knifed people to death. These issues are ignored or justified by people who claim that the Palestinian people are merely fighting for their rights. So let's continue looking at reality. Ilan Omar is a Somali refugee. She and her parents came over to this country to escape persecution by a hostile government. In her tweets, has she ever condemned the Somali government or called for an uprising there? Has she or her cohorts discussed human rights violations in places like Saudi Arabia, Iran, or North Korea? How about Gaza? That's right, Gaza, where any journalist who disagrees with the government of Hamas is beheaded and gay people are thrown off buildings. As far as watering down the resolution, there have been organizations like Black Lives Matter that seek to end persecution of people of African descent by police. When asked about black people attacking other black people in economically depressed areas, the response has been to dismiss this as another issue. Similarly, when people have expressed differences of opinion with the gay community about them getting married, the response was swift and aggressive. And by the way, I personally don't want to give anybody the wrong impression. I support Black lives. I support black civil rights. I support the right of gay people to get married. I do. And I support other minorities being treated equally, just like anybody else would. But we seem to have a very common theme here. I mean, let's look, for example, last month was Black History Month, right? There are also International Women's Day, that was the other day, and Hispanic History Month as well. What if someone were to propose that this is too narrow a focus and we should have just a general Minorities History Month? Now, again, don't misunderstand me. I fully support these people, these various groups, being showcased to help instill pride in their culture and raise just the general group and individual self-esteem. But why, however, has there not been a Jewish History Month? Consider that Jews represent, as of the last census, 1.7% of the population of the United States. And we've been around for 3,500 years. The country of Israel is less than the size of New Jersey and yet receives the ire of practically the entire world for anything that they do. We have been persecuted and oppressed for the last 1,800 years. We have been murdered by governments in various countries. We have been chased out of countries and had our possessions stolen. Why are we not considered a protective minority? Because despite all these hardships, we are some of the most successful people in the world as a group. We are overrepresented in professions such as medicine and law. We've won a disproportionate amount of Nobel Prizes. So, no benefits. There is an unfortunate pattern to this. When some of us were children, our parents, many of whom went through the World War II, and other relatives that have survived the Holocaust, said, "Don't fool yourself, it can happen in this country." Well, it is. This is the beginning. We have to fight this subtle prejudice. We have to confront these people that would justify and validate hatred and criticism against Israel for what it really is, just another attack on Jews. Many people criticize the government in Israel. In fact, there's an impending election with all the sniping that you'd expect when opposing parties seek power. Issues are being discussed, but they are being discussed in a typical political fashion without talking about oppression and bigoted stereotypes. These people are using this to blur the lines. We must remain vigilant. We must stop this cancer before it grows. Thank you for listening. I'm going to merely post this on social media and on my website. I'm not going to discuss this in synagogue. If you have any comments, please go to my website, www.modernrabbistephen.com. And thanks for listening.